Dr. Eris Thorne believed in patterns. Not in the mystical, tea-leaf reading sense, but in the rigorous, data-driven way a scientist understands them. His field, however, existed in the nebulous space between science and soul. As one of London's most sought-after past-life regression therapists, he navigated the intricate cartography of human memory, charting the faint, recurring coastlines of lives lived long ago. His office, a quiet sanctuary tucked away in a Georgian townhouse in Bloomsbury, was a testament to his methodology. It was less a clinic and more a library of the self, lined with leather-bound books on history, psychology, and comparative mythology. The air smelled of old paper, lemon polish, and the faint, calming scent of lavender oil from a discreet diffuser. Eris himself was a man of quiet contrasts. His sharp, analytical mind, honed by a doctorate in psychology from Cambridge, was housed in a frame that seemed more suited to a poet. Tall and slender, with thoughtful gray eyes and a cascade of dark hair that perpetually threatened to fall into them, he exuded an aura of gentle, academic curiosity. He approached his work with a clinician's detachment, yet he harbored a deep, private hunger for something more than just psychological echoes. He'd seen too much, heard too many details too specific to be mere fantasia. Client describing the precise weaving pattern of a 12th century Norse sail, another humming a forgotten Incan lullaby. To dismiss it all as cryptomnesia. He believed there was a genuine phenomenon at play, a form of energetic residue left on the fabric of spacetime, and his life's work was to find the loom. The centerpiece of his office, and of his private obsession, was an object that seemed utterly out of place. It was a 16th-century bronze astrolabe resting on a velvet cloth atop a heavy mahogany pedestal. It was not a replica. Its interlocking rings, or climates, were engraved with Latin and Arabic script, the reedy a delicate, web-like map of the heavens. It was a family heirloom passed down through generations of Thornes, its origins shrouded in vague tales of an ancestor who was a scholar of the esoteric. To most, it was a beautiful antique. To Eris, it was a puzzle. Sometimes, during the deepest and most profound regression sessions, he could have sworn he felt a faint vibration from it, a low, resonant hum that was more a feeling in his bones than a sound in his ears. He dismissed it as suggestion, a product of his own focused state. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The client who would change everything was named Elara Vance. She arrived on a rain-slicked Tuesday afternoon, the gray London light seeming to cling to her trench coat. She was not his typical client. Most came with a gentle curiosity or a vague sense of spiritual malaise. Elara was coiled tight with an anxiety that was almost palpable. She was an architect, a woman of angles, logic, and precision, and the chaos invading her mind was anathema to her. "I don't believe in this," she stated, her voice crisp and clear, as she sat opposite him in one of the plush leather armchairs. "Frankly, Dr. Thorne, I feel ridiculous being here, but my therapist, Dr. Albright, insisted. She said conventional methods weren't working. There's no need to believe Ms. Vance, Eris said, his tone calm and reassuring. We're simply exploring the content of your subconscious. Think of it as a form of deep, guided meditation. What is it that conventional methods have failed to address? Elara sighed, running a hand through her impeccably styled auburn hair. Nightmares. Not just bad dreams. They are hyper-realistic, and they are always the same. She described them with the precision of an architect detailing a blueprint. It always began with the smell of herbs bitter and pungent and the scratch of a wool tunic against her skin. She was in a stone room, lit by flickering candlelight and the ethereal glow of a charcoal brazier. She was young, a boy, not a girl, and her hands were stained with ink and strange chemical powders. And there was a man. The master, she whispered, her gaze distant. I never see his face clearly, it's always in shadow, but I feel his presence. It's immense. He's tall, bearded, and he speaks in a language that sounds like French but older. He dictates, and I write. I'm his apprentice. What does he dictate? Eris asked, leaning forward slightly, his professional curiosity piqued. Prophecies, she said, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. Rhyming verses, quatrains, about plagues and fires and the fall of kings. I don't understand the words, but in the dream I know what they mean, and I feel this overwhelming sense of dread. A weight of knowledge that is too heavy for a human mind to bear. The dream always ended the same way. The master would look up from his scrying bowl, a basin of water reflecting starlight, and seem to look directly at her, at Alara, through the eyes of the boy. And he would say one word, a word she understood perfectly, soon. Then she would wake up, her heart pounding, the smell of smoke and bitter herbs filling her modern, minimalist apartment. Eris felt a familiar tingle of anticipation. The details were specific, sensory, and consistent. This was fertile ground. You mentioned he uses a scrying bowl and tools. Can you describe them? There are charts, she said, closing her eyes, accessing the memory. Star charts everywhere. And brass instruments. One in particular, it's a series of concentric rings, with pointers and markings. He uses it to track the stars before he begins his work. Eris's gaze drifted to the astrolabe on its pedestal. It was impossible, of course. A coincidence. But the hum of what if was a siren song he could never resist. "Ms. Vance," he said gently. "Would you be willing to try a session today? To simply see if we can approach this memory in a controlled environment?" She hesitated, her rational mind warring with her desperation. Finally, she gave a curt nod. "Fine. But I'm warning you, I'm not easily hypnotized." "You don't need to be," Eris assured her. "Just comfortable." He began the process, his voice a low, steady rhythm that guided her away from the noisy traffic of the conscious mind. He had her focus on her breath, on the weight of her body in the chair, on the sounds of the room. He led her down a metaphorical staircase, deeper and deeper into herself, past the memories of her current life, into the vast, quiet archives of the soul. Alara proved to be an excellent subject. Her analytical mind, once it surrendered, was able to focus with incredible intensity. The initial descent was swift. Eris asked her to find the source of the dread, to go to the first time she ever felt it. The room's atmosphere began to change. The lavender scent was overwhelmed by something else, something phantom and earthy. Eris smelled it first, a faint, acrid scent of burning charcoal and dried herbs. He blinked, attributing it to the power of suggestion. Alara's breathing deepened. "I'm there," she murmured, her voice sounding younger, huskier. It was the voice of a boy. "The master has called for me. It is a night of great confluence." "Where are you?" Eris prompted, his own heart starting to beat a little faster. "Salon. In Provence. The year, the number is unclear. 15-something 55? Yes. 1555. Eris jotted the date down, his hand steady despite the tremor of excitement running through him. Salon de Provence. 1555. The time and place Nostradamus published the first part of his famous prophecies, Les Prophéties. It was still just a remarkable coincidence. A well-read architect could have absorbed that information somewhere. "Tell me what you see from the boy's perspective," Eris instructed. "I see my hands," Alara whispered. "They are chapped. Ink under the nails. I am grinding sulfur in a mortar. The master is by the window. He is watching Jupiter and Saturn. He holds his astrolabe." At the word astrolabe, Eris's head snapped up. He looked at the bronze instrument on its pedestal. And then he saw it. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer in the air around it. The metal seemed to darken, to drink the light in the room. He felt it then, not a hum in his bones, but a definite, low-frequency vibration that resonated through the floorboards. This was new. This had never happened before. "The master is speaking," Alara's voice continued, a conduit for a boy long dead. "He says the celestial alignments are perfect. The veil between the worlds is thin. He says that time is a river, but on nights like this, one can cast a line into its deepest eddies." The vibration from the astrolabe grew stronger. A soft, blue-white light began to emanate from the engraved markings, pulsing in time with Eris's own frantic heartbeat. The air in the room grew thick, charged with static electricity. The books on the shelves seemed to recede, the walls of the office dissolving into a hazy twilight. Eris felt a terrifying, exhilarating vertigo. He wasn't just observing a session anymore. He was being drawn in. The scent of herbs and charcoal was no longer a phantom. It was as real as the leather of his chair. He could feel a chill in the air, the cold draft of a stone room. He looked at Alara. She was still deep in her trance. But he was no longer just seeing his Bloomsbury office. Superimposed over it like a double exposure in a photograph was another place. A room of stone and shadow, cluttered with parchments, alembics, and retorts. He saw the flickering glow of a brazier, the glint of starlight through a high, arched window, and he saw the man. He stood with his back to them, a tall, imposing figure in dark robes. A long, gray-streaked beard fell over his chest. In his hand, he held a bronze astrolabe, identical in every detail to the one in Eris's office. Eris's scientific mind screamed for an explanation. A shared hallucination? A powerful psychic projection from Elara? But it felt too real, too solid. He could smell the wax from the candles, hear the scratch of a quill on parchment. It was the sound Elara had described. The boy her past self was sitting at a nearby table, writing furiously. The portal, if that's what it was stabilizing. Eris Thorne, the man of science and patterns, was looking through a window into 16th century France. He was so overwhelmed, so utterly consumed by the impossible reality of the scene that he did something he had never done in 1,000 sessions. He broke protocol. He spoke not to his client, but to the figure in her memory. "Who are you?" he breathed, his voice a raw whisper in the supernaturally quiet room. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. In the vision, the tall figure froze. The quill in the boy's hand stopped scratching. The entire spectral scene shuddered. The man, the master, slowly turned. Eris couldn't see his face clearly. It remained shrouded in a confluence of shadow and shimmering energy, but he felt the full force of a vast, ancient intellect turning its attention upon him. It was like being examined by a star. A voice echoed, not through Elara, but directly into Eris's mind. It was not French, not English, but pure thought, ancient and resonant. A question from the echo? A voice from the future, smelling of steel and lightning? How? The astrolabe in Eris's office flared with brilliant light. The vibration became a violent shudder. A high-pitched keening sound filled the air, and the superimposed image of the 16th century study warped and twisted. Elara gasped, her body jolting in the chair. Her eyes flew open, wide with terror and confusion. What was that? What happened? The connection shattered. The vision vanished. The light from the astrolabe died, the humming ceased. The office was just an office again, though the lingering smell of charcoal and herbs remained, a ghostly testament to what had just occurred. Eris was panting, his hand pressed against his chest. His mind, usually a fortress of calm logic, was a maelstrom of fear and wonder. He looked at the astrolabe. It sat silently on its pedestal, looking like nothing more than a beautiful antique. But he knew better. It was not just a map of the stars. It was a key. Elara was staring at him, her own composure fractured. Dr. Thorne, what just happened? I felt someone else there. It wasn't just me and the boy. It was you. And he, the master, he heard you. Eris met her gaze. The professional veil between them had been irrevocably torn. They were no longer doctor and client. They were two people who had just peered into the abyss of time and found something looking back. I think, Eris said, his voice unsteady but firm with a newfound, terrifying conviction. We need to talk about your master. I believe I know his name. And I believe this, he gestured towards the silent bronze instrument, is much more than a family heirloom. It's a gateway. He walked over to the astrolabe, his fingers tracing the cool metal. It was a note now, but a faint warmth lingered in the ancient bronze, a residual energy that promised more. He had spent his life searching for the patterns, the faint echoes of the past. He had never imagined he would find a way to have a conversation with one. The prophet, the seer of centuries, Michel de Nostradamus, had heard his voice. And Eris knew, with a certainty that defied all logic, that this was only the beginning. He had to go back. He had to understand how this portal worked and why, after nearly 500 years, it had chosen now to open. The week that followed was a fever dream of obsession for Eris. Sleep became a fleeting luxury, chased away by the replayed moment of contact, the turn of the shadowed head, the voice that wasn't a voice, the gut-wrenching sensation of a 16th century mind acknowledging his 21st century presence. He canceled his other appointments, citing a sudden need for a research sabbatical. His practice, once the center of his universe, now felt like a prelude, a black-and-white film before the invention of color. The real work had just begun. His Bloomsbury office transformed from a therapeutic space into an impromptu laboratory. Books on quantum physics entanglement, non-locality, the holographic principle were piled next to dusty translations of Agrippa and Paracelsus. He was trying to build a bridge of understanding between two worlds, his own world of empirical evidence and the world of Nostradamus, a world where consciousness and cosmos were inextricably linked. He spent hours simply sitting with the astrolabe, trying to coax another reaction from it. He touched it, talked to it, even measured it for any anomalous energy signatures with a Geiger counter and an EMF meter borrowed from a physicist friend under a flimsy pretext. The instruments remained silent. The bronze was just bronze. It was clear the astrolabe was a key, but Ilara, or more precisely, the soul that inhabited Ilara's past life as the apprentice, was the ignition. Ilara, for her part, was undergoing her own transformation. The architect's rigid world of straight lines and solid foundations had been dynamited. The initial terror had subsided, replaced by a consuming, fearful curiosity that mirrored Eris's own. The nightmares had stopped, but now her waking hours were haunted by the implications. She called him daily, her crisp, professional tone frayed with a nervous energy. "I've been reading about him," she said during one call, her voice low. "Nostradamus. Michel de Nostradamus. He wasn't just some charlatan. He was a physician and apothecary. He studied the liberal arts. He was a scholar. The man from my dream." "He was more than that, Ilara," Eris replied, his eyes on the astrolabe. "He was a visionary who claimed to see the flow of time. What we experienced wasn't a memory. It was a live connection. A temporal entanglement." "So what do we do?" she asked, the question hanging between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities and dangers. "We do it again," Eris said, the decision solidifying even as he spoke the words. "But this time we're not blundering in the dark. This time we go in with a purpose. We prepare. We control the variables. And we try to communicate." They agreed to meet the following Saturday. Eris spent the intervening days preparing for the session as if it were a deep-sea dive into the most hostile trench on Earth. He set up high-resolution audio and video recorders aimed not just at Ilara but at the astrolabe itself. He prepared a list of questions, moving from the simple to the profound. He needed to understand the mechanics of this phenomenon. Was it stable? Could it be controlled? What were the rules? And the most important question of all, why them? Why now? When Ilara arrived, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. She was no longer a skeptical client but a co-explorer, her face pale but her eyes resolute. "I'm ready," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I need to understand what this is. Who that boy was, and what his master wants. Our goal today is observation and communication," Eris instructed, his voice taking on the calm authority of a mission commander. "I will guide you back, just as before. When the connection establishes, do not be afraid. The boy, your past self, is the anchor. Through him, we have a presence in that room. Last time, my unexpected question caused a shockwave. This time, I will attempt a more gentle approach. I will try to communicate through you, to channel my questions via the boy's consciousness." He didn't mention his deeper, more audacious plan, to try and project his own consciousness through the portal more fully, to be more than a voice, to be a presence. It was too risky to voice aloud. The regression began. The familiar path down the staircase of memory felt different this time, more deliberate, like walking a known trail in the wilderness. Ilara sank into the trance with a speed that was almost startling. The connection formed not with a slow fade, but like a switch being thrown. One moment, Eris was in his office. The next, the stone study of Nostradamus was all around him, more solid and real than ever before. The shimmering, translucent quality was gone. This was no longer a vision. It was a place. He could feel the cold emanating from the flagstones, smell the sweet, cloying scent of herbs boiling in a retort over the brazier, and hear the faint sigh of the wind outside the high window. Elaraith boy was seated at the table, quill in hand. But through the boy's eyes, Eris could see, could perceive. And across the room, the master stood, his back to them, studying a celestial chart. The astrolabe was on a table beside him. In Eris's office, the physical astrolabe began to glow, its pulsing blue light bathing the room in an otherworldly luminescence. The recorders were running, silently capturing the impossible. Eris took a mental breath. Gently. He didn't speak aloud. Instead, he focused his intent, his question, directing it towards the consciousness of the boy, which was so intertwined with Ilara's. Ask him what he studies." In the 16th century room, the boy stirred. He looked up from his parchment. "Maître," he said, his voice a clear tenor, Ilara's voice, yet not. "Forgive my interruption. Your gaze is fixed upon the chart. What is it that you seek in the dance of the planets tonight? Nostradamus didn't turn. For a long moment, the only sound was the bubbling of the retort. Then he spoke, his voice a deep, gravelly baritone that seemed to vibrate in the very stones of the room. I do not seek, boy. I listen. The heavens do not hide secrets, they sing them. Tonight, they sing a strange song. A song of a bridge. A song of an echo that answers back. He paused. A most curious question. It does not feel like it comes from you. A chill traced its way down Eris's spine. He was detected. Nostradamus turned slowly. This time his face was not entirely in shadow. Eris could make out a strong, aquiline nose, a broad forehead, and eyes that seemed to hold the depth of a star-filled night sky. They were ancient, weary, but burned with a piercing intelligence. And they were looking not at the boy, but through him, directly at the point in space where Eris's consciousness was focused. There you are again, Nostradamus said, his voice calm, devoid of surprise. The ghost in the machine. The mind from beyond the veil. I have been expecting you. Eris was stunned into mental silence. Expecting me? You wonder how, the master continued as if hearing Eris's thought. Time is not the straight arrow your age believes it to be. It is a great sea. Most are carried by its currents, but some of us are born with the ability to climb the mast and see the horizon. I have seen the ripples of your arrival for many years. A mind of logic and light, touching mine through this boy and through the twin of my star reader. He gestured with his chin towards the astrolabe. What is this? Eris projected, his own thought now raw and direct. How is this possible? You call it quantum entanglement. I call it sympathy. Two objects born of the same moment and substance can remain connected across any distance. My astrolabe and yours were forged from the same ingot of bronze, blessed under the same celestial alignment. They are twins. They sing the same song across the sea of time. But they require a resonant mind to be heard. A soul that has also known this room. He glanced at the boy. And they require a bridge builder. You. This was too much. The science and the mysticism were merging into a coherent, terrifying whole. A matched pair of artifacts, a reincarnated soul, and a focused consciousness. The ingredients for a temporal portal. Why me? Eris asked. Why now? Because your age is nearing a precipice, Nostradamus said, his tone growing somber. You have built towers of glass and steel that scrape the heavens. You converse with lightning in pocket-sized boxes. You have untangled the very threads of life. But your wisdom has not grown with your power. You stand on the brink of wonders and annihilation, and you do not know which way you will fall. The future is not one path, but 1,000 branching streams. I see them all. A garden of forking paths. And many of them lead to silence and dust. He walked over to his scrying bowl, a simple basin of water that reflected the starlight from the window. I cannot interfere. That is the first law. Time is a jealous god. But I can show. I can warn. He gestured for the boy to approach. As Alara's consciousness guided the boy forward, Eris felt himself being pulled closer, his viewpoint shifting until he was standing right behind the apprentice, looking over his shoulder into the water. Your question opened the door, Nostradamus said, his eyes on Eris's unseen presence. Now look through it. Look through what I call a mirror da aims. The mirror of souls. He swirled his hand over the water. The reflection of the stars dissolved. The water darkened, then began to glow from within. Images, sharp and vivid, bloomed on its surface. Eris saw breathtaking, horrifying things. He saw cities of light, where silver vehicles moved silently through the air between graceful, green-covered spires. He saw humanity spreading to the stars, terraformed worlds glowing red and blue in alien skies. It was a future of unimaginable beauty and progress. Then the vision soured. The water clouded. He saw coastal cities swallowed by raging oceans. He saw vast tracts of land turned to cracked, barren desert under a blood-red sun. He saw faces contorted by disease, the result of a microbe engineered in a laboratory. He saw the blinding flash of nuclear fire, a mushroom cloud blooming over a familiar-looking capital. He saw a future where humanity, cowed by self-inflicted disasters, lived under the yoke of a crushing, global surveillance state, their minds pacified by digital phantoms. Each vision was a punch to the gut. It was not a vague prophecy, it was a cascade of possibilities, raw and unfiltered. These are not fates, Nostradamus's voice cut through the horror. They are potentials. Seeds. Your time is the soil in which they will either grow or wither. The choice has not yet been made. What do you want from me? Eris asked, his mind reeling, the weight of the visions pressing down on him. From you? Nothing. From your time? Wisdom, the seer replied. I have opened this channel to you because your mind is one of reason. You seek patterns. I have shown you the ultimate pattern. Do with it what you will. Warn them, guide them, or simply watch. The choice is yours. He looked directly at Eris's focal point again, his gaze infinitely weary. But know this. This bridge, this miroir, is a powerful thing. Now that it is fully open, its existence is a ripple in the sea of time. Others may feel it. Those who do not seek to warn, but to control. Those who would seize a single path and make it the only one, no matter the cost. Be careful, Eris Thorn of the Age of Lightning. You are no longer just an observer. You are a gatekeeper. With that final warning, he waved his hand over the bowl. The images vanished, replaced once more by the simple reflection of the stars. He turned his back, returning to his celestial charts. The audience concluded. The message had been delivered. The energy in the room began to dissipate. The solid reality of the 16th century study started to thin, the walls becoming translucent again. Eris felt a powerful, irresistible pull, as if a cosmic anchor was being hauled back to its home port. The connection severed with a psychic snap. Eris gasped, stumbling back, his hand flying to his head as a wave of vertigo washed over him. He was back in his office. The blue light from the astrolabe faded, its hum dying into silence. On the floor, Elara had slumped forward in her chair, breathing in deep, shuddering gasps. The recorder's small red lights were still blinking, a silent testament to the sanity of what had just happened. He rushed to her side. Elara? Are you all right? She looked up, her face streaked with tears. She hadn't known she was crying. I saw it, she whispered, her voice hoarse. All of it. The beautiful and the terrible. The weight of it, Eris, it's too much. Eris knelt before her, taking her hand. It was cold as ice. He understood her shock, her grief for futures not yet lost. He felt it himself, a profound burden of knowledge. Nostradamus's warning echoed in his mind. You are a gatekeeper. He looked from Elara's shaken face to the now silent astrolabe. It was no longer a puzzle or an antique. It was a tool of immense power and a terrible responsibility. They had opened a door they could never truly close. They had spoken with a prophet, looked into the mirror of souls, and been shown the branching paths of human destiny. The quiet academic life of Dr. Eris Thorn was over. He was standing at a crossroads in time, with the future of the world, or at least its many potential futures, resting on his shoulders. And he knew with chilling certainty that Nostradamus was right. They were not the only ones who would be looking for the key to that door. The real danger had just begun.